I definitely feel the burn. Hello, and welcome everyone to Take a Break, break spelled B-R-A-K-E. It's a bike pun, did you get it? My name is Justin Allen. This is a podcast where I usually travel the Metroplex on my bike, park somewhere, and record a podcast at that location. I will explain in a moment why I said usually, but nonetheless, welcome everyone. Let us begin by getting the boring bike stuff out of the way that no one cares about. Usually when I am doing this podcast and I'm on a bike ride, I'm pausing like in the middle of the bike ride, and I usually say something along the lines of, oh, I am currently at 7 miles, but after I finish recording, I have to turn around and go back to my starting point. So usually what ends up happening is it's like 7 plus 7 equals like 14 miles. That's just an example, but this is the first time that I've ever done the entire bike ride and then recorded the podcast, so I'm actually already done with the ride. My current miles is at 10 exactly. My time is 38 minutes and 55 seconds, and my pace is 15.42 miles per hour. I burned 360 calories on the ride, and I'm going to start keeping up with certain statistics, such as my current miles since starting the podcast is 77.09 miles. My current miles for the year is 317.1 miles. And my current miles total on the app that I use to keep track of all this is 918 miles. I'm very happy to report that last week I actually crossed the 900 mile mark, which is very, very cool. Now, earlier, when I was doing the intro, I brought up the fact that this podcast is usually where I travel the Metroplex on my bike, and I wanted to be very transparent with everyone. I'm actually at my house today. I'm not going to make this a usual thing, but I'm currently in my backyard with my 2 dogs, Scrump and Rosie. Shout out to Scrump and Rosie. And I'm underneath my awning and my patio. Is it called an awning? The thing that's above me, is that called an awning? I'm gonna go ahead and assume that's called an awning. But I am taking shelter from the 100-degree heat. It is Sunday, June 23rd, 2024 is the day I'm recording this. It is 100 degrees outside, and we have 5 upcoming days of 100 degrees. That's just gonna be absolutely brutal. But to do this podcast, I need to get over the heat, and it's actually kind of frustrating because I started this podcast in June. The first episode was June 4th. I released the trailer on June 1st. I could not have chosen a more worse time to do this podcast. Future episodes, I got to get over the heat. I'm not going to make this a usual thing. And the heat actually isn't the reason I'm not actually outside on a bike ride today. I wanted to let everyone know this is an update from the last episode, episode 3, titled My Family's Curse. I recorded that on Wednesday, June 12th, and in that episode, I stated about how I wanted to buy myself an indoor bicycle because I felt that it would have been a good way to keep myself focused on my goals. And I am happy to report that I bought an indoor bike on Friday, June 14th, 2 days after I recorded that episode. So I actually bought the bike before I even released that episode. You might not have known that, but I don't know how you would know that, unless you're stalking me, you weirdo, you creep. I got this bike off Amazon. If you're interested, it's called the Exercise Bike Wienerkur. I have no idea. It's one of those things. Indoor cycling bike / brake pad stationary bike for home. Indoor bike with silent belt drive, heavy flywheel, comfortable seat cushion, and upgraded LCD monitor. That's a mouthful, but that's the title of the product. If you're interested, I did leave a link in the show notes or the episode description. This product's price is listed at $259.99. It is rated 4.5 stars with 696 reviews. I thought it'd be fun to do an episode where I rode my indoor bike and then afterwards just recorded it at my home because I rode in my indoor bike. I did think people would probably be a little less upset and be a little more receptive to this idea if I still was outside. So once again, I am sitting on my backyard patio, chilling with my 2 dogs under what I think is called the awning. You know, man, I am protected for the sun, but it's really still freaking hot outside, and I can feel myself getting destroyed by mosquitoes. Does everyone else get destroyed by mosquitoes? Let me know if you do, because that one made me feel a little bit better. They just love mosquitoes. Love me. I have a friend, shout out to Jack. He told me the other day that he doesn't get eaten by mosquitoes, and I got very mad at him. I was like, well, you know what? Up yours. Anyways, I'm going on tangents. We're going to review this indoor bike that I bought off Amazon. If you want to see pictures of it, I posted them on Instagram at Take a Break Pod. There's not really going to be any fancy outdoor pictures that I usually do. I apologize. For those who don't really care to go all the way to Instagram to look at pictures of this bike, I'm going to do my best to describe it. The colors of the bike are red and black. It has a fancy wheel in the front with pedals in the back. It has an adjustable seat so you can raise the height as well as bring it forward and back. It has a nice little knob in the middle that adjusts resistance. You have handles out in front with an LCD screen that displays your statistics. So when I say statistics, I mean like miles, distance, miles per hour, calories, all that. That's how I know, even though it was an indoor bike ride, like what my stats were, and that's how I knew what to input it into the app that I use. It also has a drink carrier and a nifty little place to put your devices. So I'm going to name some of my cons that I wrote out, and then I'm also going to name some of my pros that I wrote out. And after all that, I'm going to give my review. It's going to be out of 5 stars, just like Amazon does. So the cons, right? The first thing, this is not the developer's fault, but I realized there was a blue version afterwards. This is personal preference, but my favorite color is like turquoise or aqua, and I just think the blue version matched my aesthetic better, and I wish I had known that afterwards. Like I said, not the developer's fault. That's purely a thing that bothers me. I wrote out before I did this bike ride that the handles were slightly wobbly. I did, however, find out that there's actually a way you can tighten those handles, so that is null and void. My last con is the LCD screen. I'm gonna be honest, this LCD screen is not something that you would see on like a Peloton where it's like this fancy HD screen or anything. And my biggest issue with it actually is that I have to scroll between the different stats, and it also like rotates through the different stats, so it'll be like calories for a few seconds, and then it'll show me the time for a few seconds, and it'll show me the miles for a few seconds, and then if I want to go to a specific stat, I have to click through and go through the different stats, and I'm being very picky. This is a very small con that probably won't bother other people, but I would like it if I didn't have to rotate through the different stats. Like if they were just all there in one spot. That's what I love. Now for the pros. Quality is great for the price. I am basing this off of if you were to buy it for the base price of $259.99, it's pretty great quality. It's sturdy. For the price of $259.99, this bike is very good quality. It's easy to assemble. The instructions were nice and clear. Once again, there is a knob where you can change resistance. It is easy to reach and adjust. It's very quiet. There is a neat spot where you can put a drink, like I mentioned earlier. The nifty spot to put your devices is really cool. I like to watch stuff. I don't have a tablet, but I'm pretty sure it can fit tablets because on Amazon, I'm pretty sure they show tablets like on the bike. I brought up earlier the LCD screen being a con, but a pro for the screen is that it's actually powered by AA batteries. The bike also doesn't even need power to use. So I like this because I can pretty much put it everywhere. I'm not restricted to where there's an outlet in my house, so that's very nice. It has 2 wheels on one of the sides, so the bike is easy to move. It's very easy to move. Once again, it's sturdy. The seat is surprisingly comfy. It's a great workout. I definitely feel the burn. Now, my overall rating, if you were to buy this for the base price of $259.99, I would have to agree with the 4.5 star out of 5 rating that's on Amazon. Now, however, for bias reasons, I'm including this after my review. I actually got this bike when it was on sale for $198. Now, doing the math, that is about 25% off. Additionally, I got another $20 off using credit card reward points. You can do that on Amazon. It's pretty cool. So I got this bike for about $170, and I will have to say my review with the price bias included is 4.8 stars out of 5. I really do feel like I got a steal with this bike. It was, once again, $260. I got it almost $90 off for about $170, man. I'm able to be lazy without actually being lazy. On top of that, Texas summers are brutal. I mean, I'm feeling this right now. You can hear the cicadas. I can literally see, you know how when it's like really hot in a desert, you can see like the heat waves through the air? I'm literally seeing that right now. It's so hot. Also, Texas springs are very unpredictable with storms, and then you got the winter. There's randomly like some ice and snow sometimes. So yeah, man, I'm very, very happy with this purchase. So there's a phrase I like to use when it comes to bike riding. Does anyone know those Soulsborne games, those video games? There's Dark Souls 2 and 3, there's Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring, and Demon Souls. If you're not aware of those games, they're created by a company called From Software. The point of the games is they're really, really, really difficult. However, in those Soulsborne games, you can actually do this thing called farming, and it's where you can be in an area where there's a lot of enemies or something, and you can kill them over and over again and respawn them and continue to kill them over and over again in order to gain currency and be able to level up. So applying this term to biking, I like to use a term called farming for miles. And this is basically somewhere where I can very easily just farm for miles. It's places that I would say are very repetitive, very easy to be repetitive, and not a lot of hills. So that way you're not, going up a steep hill or something and slowing down your pace. Currently, I would say I have 3 spots. I actually unfortunately lost one. I'll get into that in a second. But my first one is a park. I call it Ring Around the Rosie. It's a 0.3. That's funny. I actually have a dog named Rosie. I literally brought her up. Shout out to Rosie again. But I like to call this Ring Around the Rosie. It's a park. It's 0.3 miles, and it's like a circle that goes around and around and around. And I know that a lap around that circle is 0.3 miles. So I can literally just constantly go around and around and around the circle, and I can just gather up miles. Now, my buddy Bryce, who's also a huge biker, he does a lot of rallies, does like 60 miles per bike ride. He says he definitely can't do something like that where he just goes around and around a circle constantly. However, I definitely can. I'm very good about just turning my brain off with music or something. And so that's the first farming spot. I have the second farming spot, which is a trail that is exactly 1 mile long that once again goes somewhat around in a circle. Now, the reason I like doing this one is because I brought up the fact that a lap is almost exactly a mile. So I'm able to keep track in my head. Once again, when I turn my brain off, I'm able to keep track in my head how many times I've gone around and around and around. This is the spot that I've unfortunately pretty sure I've lost since then, because some jerk told me that there were no bikes allowed. And you know what? I'm getting off in a tangent, but I did not see any signs that said I could not be there with my bike. So you know what? Screw that guy. Lastly, now I have my indoor bike. And I would argue this is probably the ultimate farming spot. Because, man, I'm indoors. I can literally just be in my house. I could just be like, oh, I want to do a quick 10 miles, and I can knock it down in about 40 minutes because there's no uphills and there's no wind that I have to worry about. Few last things before I end the show. I wanted to give quick updates from previous episodes. In episode 1, I brought up the Dallas Mavs. They were going to be playing the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. The Dallas Mavs unfortunately lost the finals in 5 games. They lost 4-1. The Mavs didn't have great performances. There were defensive struggles. I know Luka fouled out one of the games with like 6 minutes left in the game or something like that. And there was a lot of missed free throws. Specifically in game 2, Boston was missing every single 3-pointer in the first half, and the Mavs easily could have taken advantage of that situation with Boston missing their threes. They were even leading in the first quarter, but man, I was watching Mavs miss almost every single free throw that they did, and it was so frustrating. Even the announcers pointed out, Boston won't be missing these threes in the second half, and that is exactly what happened. Boston ended up pulling ahead, and Dallas, after game 3, ended up falling 3-0, which no team has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit in the finals. That record was 0-156, so 156 teams have lost. I guess that's 0-147. My bad. Boston won their 18th championship. That is their first championship since 2008. Man, I just want to say congrats to Boston. Unfortunately, the finals didn't end up being that interesting. I know I've seen a lot of comments online saying this was one of the worst NBA finals. That's a little disappointing. I am, however, excited to see what Luka, Kyrie, and the Mavs do in the next few years. I'm hoping we can make something happen before Luka, potentially leaves. I hope he retires as a Maverick, but you never know. That's going to be years in the future. Last update from episode 3, that big boy snake that I encountered was apparently a water moccasin. According to some comments, if you're unaware, water moccasins are very, very venomous. So that's scary. I got pretty close to take the picture of the snake, but I was still, I zoomed in, so I was still a decent ways away from the snake. The snake expert, the other biker, ended up being incorrect. He said it was a copperhead, and man, he got way closer to that water moccasin than I did, man, and he didn't even know if it was a water moccasin. So, I guess what I'm trying to say, kids, is make sure that you know what snake you're approaching. Make sure it's not venomous or anything. I brought this up earlier, how I've been doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work on the podcast. I'm so excited to announce that I finally got the podcast on new platforms. It is now on YouTube, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Pocket Casts, and Overcast. So if you're interested in any of those podcast platforms, I now have it on there. You can go to links.co, links with 2 I's, /take a break. That is links.co/take a break. If you don't feel like typing that out, there will be a link provided in the episode description that you can go check that out. Click that so you don't have to type out the link. Man, this entire process of getting the podcast onto the new platforms, the distribution has been very unnecessarily difficult. Hasn't been easy whatsoever. Next episode, I plan on going into more detail and ranting about the entire distribution process and how difficult it's been. But in the meantime, I just want to say that I am very appreciative that that's all in the past, and now I can just worry on making the show, so that's very cool. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed, please follow the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Once again, that link is links.co/take a break. That link will be provided in the episode description. You can support the show by sharing, rating the show 5 stars, and leaving a review. Follow me on Instagram at Take a Break Pod, no spaces or caps or underscores or anything. You can see pictures that I post from the show. Please leave a comment, man. You can currently leave comments on YouTube and Instagram, and if you listen on Spotify, I leave little Q&As and polls and stuff that you can leave responses on, and I can actually pin my favorite responses to the episodes. So definitely go make sure to leave a comment, and with all that being said, I will see you guys next week for another episode of Take a Break.